So in November of 2019, I listened to a podcast that truly changed my trajectory as a teacher. This was an interview with R. Michael Hendricks, who is a designer with IDEO, and it was about adopting musical mindsets. So at that time in November of 2019, I was really struggling with my trajectory as an educator. On one hand, I had just returned from a really inspiring conference in Boston with capstone educators from across the country, but I was still struggling if education was really the true direction I wanted to pursue with my life. You see, I actually came into education from being a full-time musician. Before being a full-time teacher in 2013, I was working as a musician, playing music 4 to 5 times per week, playing in multiple bands, traveling around Hawaii Island and to other islands as well. It was my passion, it was my love, and I was still holding on to my dreams of being a professional musician as I was entering the education field. And even as I was an educator in 2013, I had released 3 albums of original music, and I was still active playing music 2 to 3 times a week. But listening to this podcast with R. Michael Hendricks truly gave me the opportunity to have the ideas in my head click about how I can bring music and education together, and I didn't have to make a decision about 1 or 2 of these pathways in my life. And in fact, shortly after, by January, I had applied for a master's degree program in education entrepreneurship at a university in Finland, which I am currently enrolled in. So what I want to share with you about going all in is some of the important lessons I've learned about bringing my 2 passions together, music and education. And that going all in doesn't necessarily leaving one to pursue the other. But going all in as an educator is bringing the things you love into your education space. So the first thing I learned about how I can bring my musical mindset into the classroom is on listening. Now, listening might sound like a pretty obvious thing with music, but you'd be surprised with how many musicians I've worked with who are not listening. Listening to the gaps in the music, listening for the space for them to enter, and also listening to themselves and listening to the voice inside them. The same thing is what we need to do as educators and teachers. We need to be listening to our students. We need to be listening to how they're responding to our instruction. We need to be listening to the learning that's going on in our classrooms and trying to see what are the gaps that we need to fill as designers of educational experiences for them. The second musical mindset that I've been able to bring into my teaching is on experimentation and improvisation. As a musician, this is all about trying new things, having those happy accidents, really giving yourself the room and the freedom to play, to noodle, as we say, to try out different chords, different rhythms, try out different lyrical combinations, and just giving yourself that trust that through this process of struggling through different ideas, that a new and more amazing idea will emerge. This is the most crucial mindset that I've learned from music that I've been able to bring into my classroom. As educators, I think we're often forced to deliver static curriculum, and we're asked to focus on predetermined content for our students. But what I've learned that as educators, we have to trust ourselves to try new things, to have the freedom to experiment. And in fact, we're not letting our students down when we try new things that might fail. We're actually supporting them because we're pushing ourselves to think of new ways to design learning in our classrooms. And what will emerge out of this experimentation is better and more effective teaching for our students. The third thing is about connecting. Music at its heart is all about creating connections. When I step on stage or if I'm in a kanikapila, I need to connect with the people around me. I need to get their attention by bringing my true self into the music that I'm playing. This is so very true for education and teaching as well. When we step into a learning space, we have eager sponges that are our students. We need to create those connections with them so that they can absorb all the learning that we desire to bring to them. Education, more than anything, is about relationships. And it's when I connect with my students and I share my true self with them that I'm able to create that deep, fulfilling learning that we want for our students. Again, the hardest part for teachers sometimes to understand is that the content is secondary. Relationships have to come first. And when I bring that mindset of connecting with students into my teaching, I find that I'm able to make the learning personal. I'm able to bring my full self, and the students are more open and willing to absorb the learning that I'm trying to deliver. The final musical mindset that I bring into my teaching is about sensing. And sensing is not just the listening that I was talking about previous. It's really about those connections between the feelings and the thinking that you're doing. It's really looking at all your senses and activating them in the fullest sense. As a musician, I'm not just operating through my ears. I'm feeling the rhythm. I'm physically interacting with my space, with my instrument, with my voice, with the sound, with what I'm seeing. I'm putting all my senses to work to make sure that my music is a conduit for everything that's happening around me. And this is true of teaching as well. I need to go beyond just the content. I need to sense what space am I creating. This could be how desks are set up, how students enter the room, where are the windows located, where am I located, where are students looking, where are students relative to other students. Sensing all of these elements together in the classroom and responding to them is what's going to help me be a teacher. Do I have music playing in the background? Is it quiet? What type of music am I playing? Do I even want to play music in my background? It is key that I sense all these things working together so I can give the students a true space where they can engage with the learning. So to conclude, for me, going all in is bringing my full self as a musician into my teaching. And the message I want to share with my story is that it's not about being a musician. It's about being your true self and bringing that into your teaching. Whether you love surfing, gardening, being outside, writing, whatever it might be. And if that's a passion of yours that you've at times questioned if you should be pursuing that over teaching, I would encourage you to bring that into your classroom and bring that into yourself as you teach, and do it with no apologies. I've learned that I don't have to decide between these external passions, that in fact, I can make them more enriching by bringing them into my teaching. I really want to thank R. Michael Hendricks, as well as his co-author, Panos Pane, who wrote a wonderful book called 2 Beats Ahead about musical mindsets and innovation, who I adopted all these ideas from. These are not my own, but they were deeply inspiring for me. And so I want to make sure I give note to those 2 authors for their ideas. Thank you, Stephanie, for letting me share. Thank you, Christy, and thank you, Daphne and Matt, for your inspiring talks. Mahalo.